Hello, today we're going to be learning how to paint a green meadow. The first thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and make our sky a nice blue. I've chosen to do a slightly muted blue as my background, and I kept that pretty much one tone. Then I'm going to mix up several green colors here. We want to make sure there's a lot of variation in the colors so that we get some different depths. Some hills, as well as you always want to have your more muted colors, lighted muted colors towards the back. So we're going to start at the horizon area of the meadow with our muted colors and place those in kind of long sweeping strokes. We don't want or at least I don't want the horizon to be completely flat, so I'm going to come up in some areas and down in others. And then I'm going to be working my way towards the front, adding slightly darker and more vibrant colors as I go towards the foreground. I want my meadow to have some kind of slight sweeping hills. So what I'm going to do is I've got my background area towards the horizon line muted, and then I'm going to add in some darker colors, and then I'll re-add those muted colors above them, and leaving just a little bit in the background where the darker colors are so that it hints towards a depression in the ground, and you'll see that kind of come together. Here's where I add the light in the foreground to try to show that there's the top of a hill, and behind there is where the dark area is to show the depression. I work in layers. I think it gives better depth to a painting, so you're going to want to wait for that layer to dry before you go back in and add another layer. I'm going to work on the sky, and in here is where I'm going to really try to get some more natural feeling to the sky. That first layer, I just got down the main color that I wanted to be there, but in this layer I'm going to work on having some areas of light and dark within the sky to kind of give it a more natural feeling. At this point, I also decided I wanted to add some clouds in my sky, and at the very beginning I kind of liked this, but as it progressed, I think I kept making it worse and worse, and it wasn't really looking like how I wanted it to, so later in the video you'll see I decided to take that cloud out. Then, to move on to the meadow area to build more layers, I wanted some different colors and a little bit more vibrancy, both in darker dark greens as well as brighter, more fluorescent greens. And we're going to go in and add more detail to this layer. In this meadow that I'm imagining, I want there to be kind of the hint of some maybe far off trees and shrubs, and so one of the things I want to do to add further depth to the horizon line is to add kind of a muted dark color, and then follow that up with kind of a real bright highlight to show kind of height and depth. And I do this on everywhere where I want there to be either an elevated area, which is where I put a lighter, brighter color, and then a darker area, which I want to show kind of the depression of the meadow and kind of a hill. And you just want to kind of go back and forth on this, working in layers until you get kind of the detail that you want. And you always want to try to have your brightest colors in the foreground, because that's more true to what you see if you were to be standing looking at a meadow. At this point, I'm pretty happy with the depth I'm getting in the meadow and kind of the sweepingness of the greens. So I'm going to go ahead and add in kind of some of those bushes and trees that I said I wanted to have as features. And you'll see I make them kind of small in the background. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of texture to the grass to kind of just change things up a little bit and add in bits of color. And this is really up to your imagination where you think things would lie. I typically try to put them kind of at the tops of ridges or maybe peeking out over where the depressions are, and just highlight areas that just seem a little boring. I sped this up, but I spent a lot of time trying to fix this cloud up and kind of add some different depth to it, and some things were working and some things weren't, but I still wasn't in love with it. Since nothing I did seemed to work, I decided to cut my losses, and I went ahead and scraped off as much of the wet paint as I could and just remixed up my sky colors that I wanted to complement the bright meadow. So I used a nice blue, but I tried to mute it a bit, and I'm just going to repaint the sky. Once I had the sky a nice blue color with some different kind of gradations within it, I decided I wanted to have some wispy clouds, and so I went in with a very small brush and kind of lightly put in some of the wispy areas that I wanted and let it blend with the background a little bit. And then I added on white layers on top of those to make certain areas stand out more. And then I work in layers with this again. I'll add a little bit of kind of a gray to show some of the depth to the clouds, kind of the shady parts, and then I'll go back in and add a little bit more of the white areas. And when you do the little wisps that are separated, you don't have to do as much of that, but a little bit is nice. And I really liked how kind of the clouds were sweeping from one direction up to the other. This is really up to your imagination and how you want things to look. I guess this could almost be a little mini tutorial on how not to paint clouds, since the initial one turned out so terribly. But I do like how these ones turned out a lot better. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like more videos like this, please subscribe.